Welcome to Martin Monday's Intentional Intimacy, where love, life, and legacy meet in the moments that matter most. Every week, I will share sacred reflections of my 30-year marriage before Martin's passing, as well as our life now without him. May these reflections help us live with more weight, warmth, and wisdom. Martin was a letter carrier by profession, but a life carrier by purpose. So let's take a moment and let intentional intimacy speak. Hello, Paula here. Welcome to episode 41 of Martin Mondays. This is fatherhood or motherhood through fatherhood. Here we go. So, this is airing the day after Mother's Day. So, happy Mother's Day yet again to all the moms. Every day is our day, ladies, right? And to all those who function in motherhood, because motherhood is a function. It's not just, one who has delivered, birthed, and carried a child, because those that nurture ultimately are providing motherhood, even if they've not physically given birth to a child. And so I think that's the working definition that I'm going to take into today's episode. So there are some things that you don't really notice while they're actually happening. Things are happening and you're not always noticing. Not because they're small things, but because they're steady things. And a lot of times we don't notice the things that are steady. We kind of ignore them. And so Martin had this way about him. He would care for me that didn't ask for attention. He just cared for me. Um, it didn't arrive loudly or, announced. It just was simply love, and it showed up in everything that he did. There would be, an umbrella in my car, because who has to pay attention to the weather when you got Martin, right? There would be cream in the fridge for my coffee always, right? um, my glasses, oh my goodness, I don't even have them on today. They were always placed within reach for me to be able to get to my glasses because he already knew I would be looking for them. And so at the time, I really didn't call it anything. It just was Martin. It was just his way. It just felt like life moving smoothly. Things were handled, but oh, he was so Martin-esque. As I look back now, I realized something about the way that he loved me. His love for me was thoughtful, yes, but more than that, it was anticipatory. He would see a need and be committed to fulfill it. He didn't just respond to my needs, he moved ahead of them. That's fatherhood and motherhood combined, right? And that kind of care, it really does something to you at the core, because it means someone is really paying attention, even when you're not asking to be seen. It means that someone is keeping you in mind, even in moments that you didn't realize you needed to be held. And I think about this so much more and more now, especially around this time of year, because we talk a lot about motherhood as sacrifice, as presence, as protection. And that's all true. But there's another part of it. There's a quieter part of motherhood. And that's the part that notices, the part that anticipates, and the part that prepares, right? Before you even know that you need it. And somehow I lived that, my husband. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't in a way where he was trying to prove anything. He just was simply being. It was just the way he moved through the world with me. And I didn't always stop to name it. Let's just be honest, because in the moment, I didn't see it totally for what it was. I just was used to it. Quite honestly, my father did it for my mother. So it just seemed natural. And it just seemed like what you were supposed to do. I didn't realize just how special it really was. I didn't always pause to hold it dear and to really appreciate that level of care, that level of love, because honestly, that is something rare. I just was living it because I was used to it. And now it's the small things that stay with me, not those grand gestures. I like those too now, don't get me wrong. But those small things, the umbrella, the cream in the refrigerator, my glasses, the quiet ways that he made sure that I was okay before I even knew that I needed to be. I'll reflect some more on the other side. So Mother's Day. Mother's Day can hold a lot. I'm thinking about my mom for sure. For some, it's full. For others, it can be complicated because everybody doesn't have the same relationship, with their mom. And for many, it can be both at the same time, full and complicated. But when I think about motherhood now, I find myself often thinking less about title and more about how the care of motherhood actually shows up. Because the title is not the significant part. Because sometimes, if we're honest with ourselves, the most maternal kind of love doesn't come from where you might expect it. Let's just kind of be honest. Because sometimes that maternal kind of love, it looks like someone who pays attention, someone who learns your rhythms, your cadences, someone who quietly builds the world around you that makes it easier for you to breathe, to function, to do what needs to be done. And sometimes that someone is a man. And I got it from my mom. My mom she was she was stern. She had that loving part too. She did. Don't get me wrong. Um, well, my husband was a real nurturer. He embodied aspects of motherhood that made life so much easier for me. So it wasn't um, that fatherhood replaces motherhood in your life, right? It's a both and, not in place of what um, the mom does or doesn't do, but alongside of it as complementary. That's the key word. It's complementary. Because when I think about Martin's story, whatever he carried, whatever he endured in life, he still became someone who knew how to care very deeply. That was a beautiful thing about him. One of the things that I really loved about him. And I can't explain exactly how that happens. I just know I lived inside of his nurture zone. And now when I reach for my glasses, which I probably should put them on, when I reach for my glasses and they're not there, I feel the absence of his presence that once felt so ordinary. It's the simple things that just make me think about him. And I understand it so, so differently now. The kind of care that he provided, it wasn't small. It's really not, it just wasn't small. And in life, things like that are not necessarily automatic and they're not guaranteed. It's something that ultimately someone in your life has to choose over and over again without asking to be seen for it. So as we reflect on Mother's Day, I'm holding space for just that, for the quiet, anticipatory kind of love, for the ways that we are cared for that don't always have a name, quite honestly. And I'm holding space for people who gave us something that we didn't even realize that we were receiving. So, what am I saying at the end of the day here? If someone has ever cared for you in a quiet way, like I'm describing, they've been Martin-esque and cared for you in this quiet, loving, nurturing type of way, take a moment today to remember that. Reflect, ponder, think about that person. If they're still here in life, maybe you might want to reach out and just thank them and honor them. Take some time today and think about that, both from a receiving perspective, where you receive it, but also how are you giving that to others? There is motherhood that's available for each and every one of us to operate in, whether you're a man or a woman. That unconditional, anticipatory type of love is what we're after. Because love doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just prepares a place for you before you actually arrive. So love well, and I'll catch you next time on Martin Mondays. Thanks for joining. Martin Mondays continues on Tuesday with the Tuesday Tea. Check it out and join me and take a sip. You know, Martin used to say a lot of things. Some were funny, some were wise, but one thing he often said was, wow. Wow. Just those 3 letters. It spoke volumes. It meant a lot. When he didn't know what to say, wow. When he was excited about something, wow. When he was confused, perhaps, or even frustrated, he said, wow. And you know, he's still saying wow. Through this bracelet, he's still saying wow, because he's still saying, may your whole life prove that God is good. And so in closing, that's my hope for you this week. May you have wow moments as you too are living out legacy. Live in the wow. Live in the reality of knowing that your whole life is good. Live in the heartbeat of Martin Mondays and intentional intimacy. May that anchor you in this week as you build legacy, one wow, one moment at a time. See you next week.